Welcome into the Energy Tech Podcast. Today, we're joined by co-host Mike Flores and special guest Navneet Behl. Guys, welcome into the show.
Jeff, thanks for welcoming me. I am your co-host. I'm Mike Flores with the Energy Tech Podcast, where automation, remote monitoring, and digital tools are shaping the future of the energy industry. And I'm your co-host. It's great to have Mr. Navneet Behl. Nav, glad to have you on the show. Nav, first of all, it's a great privilege to just be in the booth with you today because I've been looking for a great opportunity to kind of talk to you about some of the challenges that you face as an operations officer working with at a senior level with producers and peers, you know, both working with you in the past myself and now where you're currently taking the helm here at CNX as you have been. And so just want to introduce you. If you're new to the podcast, Nav, I mean, tell us, man, what you've been up to and, you know, kind of your experience all around here, not just with CNX, but in the past, you know.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. And good to catch up with you and OpSite and the podcast. So, as you guys have seen in the last, couple of decades since the advent of shales in 2004, 2005, right. I think we have all come a long ways.
Yes.
You know, both on operational technology and technology front.
Yeah.
And it's been always constantly evolving, right?
Right.
First data was pretty simple on spreadsheets. Then it got into databases. Then a little bit of Excel macros, and now we are at the forefront of generative AI. And I think it just helps making good quality decisions. Faster, right. and more so.
Yeah.
So that way we're always trying to optimize the operations both on performance side and the spend side.
Yes.
So this should eventually transform the energy industry. And in my mind, all of this will bring really economic, low-cost energy to all the consumers, and that's the goal for us. Take away all the waste that's been caused by, delays in decision making,
right.
and not having the right quality of data to make those decisions.
Yeah. So I think, Nav, that's what you just said there is a high level discussion in terms of data. Everyone always says they cliche that data is the new oil and fill in the blank, about data. So it's become sort of a cliche thing. But interestingly enough, whether it's you in your current role and where I met you, which was, just before your days at Apache, I think you saw early on that data wasn't somehow the new oil. It's pretty much the commodity in your business, and that is the commodity. I don't think it's necessarily the product that you're drilling and having takeaways on. It's that information that becomes the commodity, right? I mean, in my mind, you've kind of always looked over the last few years, especially in the last few years with the advent, like you said, of generative AI, large language models, the advent and the heavy lifts of machine learning. There's this undertaking right now with lots of organizations to move and scramble and say, we've neglected. Yeah, we have products that we deliver, whether you're in manufacturing, oil and gas, whatever your vertical market is. At the end of the day, your data seems to be the commodity anyway. So I think what I'm hearing you saying is that has to shift to become the commodity of the company, right? You agree with that, or do you think it's something else?
Yeah. So let me tell you about what I think of data first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as human beings, like we've evolved over millions of years here, and all the time we have made decisions with data, right? So what do I mean? Like through our 5 sense organs, we are always processing information. So
right.
Data is nothing but information converted to something you store.
Right.
But we've been getting this information all along, right? The first time there was lightning, fire struck, piece of wood, it started, human race changed to that. So that was data coming in, like, of creating mm, fire, and then human race started evolving with it. So we've been processing information and storing data in our brains all the time, right?
Right.
And a lot of through the history and where we have evolved to the civilization we have right now through all the different ages, uh, it's been data that has helped us evolve, right? From
Right.
Iron Age to Bronze Age, right, to Copper Age. So all that evolution of human civilization has been led by data,
Right.
right? So we just
Right.
didn't name it so, but it's processing of information, storing, analyzing of that. So so now with the advent of technology, right, we can actually capture a lot more data at a very higher frequency, a lot of information at a higher frequency, and store it in drives or cloud or wherever we want to.
Right.
So the information has always been the key advantage of how you process and make decisions, right? For example, yesterday was Warren Buffett's annual meeting, and you
Right.
see, like, the only reason he is one of the best investors on the planet, right, or in the history of world, is because he took the information which everyone had and processed it in a different way,
Right.
right? And that was his advantage.
Right.
And so with data coming in now, like, and with our ability to process it in different ways and a
Yeah.
very high rate, some of those advantages are going away. So that's what is the most exciting thing, right?
Right.
Like, no one has to be limited by the processing capacity or the speed with which you process the information,
Right.
right? Which is stored as data.
Right.
So to me, like, that is the key advantage of where we are right now. And that's where I think with CNX, like, we want to take advantage and go to the next level, is where we are gathering all the information through
Yes.
different methods. Like, in the past, you and I have been in the Signet world, right?
Yes.
And now we are moving to the Ignition world, where you can gather information on edge devices way, way faster, process it, and then help everyone, make decisions faster, but
Yeah.
also of higher quality, right?
Yeah.
So to me, data is kind of uh, ki- uh, is kind of a place where it gives us, like, a much better tool to work with,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so I think you're making the key point here that as a technologist, from my perspective, my perspective is that so data gives us intelligence, right? There's an intelligence gathering piece to data all the time that you're doing. Like you said, even if we went several thousand years, we're talking about that. We gathered intelligence, like you said, around our senses. We took that in and we did something with it, right? We hunted, we gathered, we produced. We created. So we do those things, and then once you start marching into the industrial revolution at the time, or each industry peak, right, all the way to the advent of the PLC in the late 70s, in 1979. The PLC's about, and you have these protocols, and then you have the introduction of TCP/IP for a digital change. So everybody's got that intelligence. It put us on sort of an equal footing, but I think what you're saying now is that we're going from what's legacy to predictive operations. We're now going into the next level, which is we're doing legacy data gathering, which is big data. Hey, I go get it, and I either put it in the cloud or I place it somewhere, and now I'm going to leverage my repository, my data for something. Because I think what's interesting about people is that they can gather information based on past or legacy experience, but what they cannot do with the naked eye is predict, right? So you cannot, you can look at the weather and assume it's going to rain, and then when it starts raining, you forecast. So there's some forecasting, and that's great. But what you cannot do, I think, and which is what is propelling us now with AI, is the next move, which is moving from legacy to predictive operations. And you hinted at this because right now, what the partnership with OpSite, and CNX is we're taking away or moving away from a legacy system like Signet, which is what we call a legacy paywall system. This means that we integrate the system. It's outdated. It's not open source. It requires a bigger license carry. It has all these additional fees. It's not interoperable with other legacy pieces. It doesn't allow us to connect devices at the edge. So you mentioned a minute ago, hey, now we're moving to a product like Ignition that is open source, doesn't care about the number of tags that you have, can do lots of industrial and IoT heavy lifting. So I think that is challenge. I see that as part of our discussion here is challenge number one is for CNX to move from a legacy to a predictive operation. And the first piece of that is at the foundation, putting in an IoT centerpiece to start integrating that data, right?
Correct. As you mentioned that data is before it used to be luxury in the 70s and 80s, right?
Right.
And only like really bigger companies could afford it. But now it's democratized, right? Even the smaller person like can gather data in their home about everything that they have.
Right.
So it just becomes very democratized, and what happens is it's pushing us to evolve to different phases of decision making, right?
Right.
So in the legacy systems, you gathered the data, saw what was right, surveillance. I remember when I was a lease operator, like we used to get in the office at 6 o'clock, look at all the cards from rod pumping wells and make decisions on which ones we want to attack that day.
Right.
So and those used to be like on a piece of paper, like Nablas and a little bit like different platforms. And now like you can take that data and have it automatically kind of process it, and then it'll send you a text or an email on what you do. So as we are getting better and better at the block and tackling the first part of it,
Right.
which is the legacy data. So then the second part is you use the data to go towards a preventive maintenance schedule, right? So where you are ahead or know exactly close to the time on which what your maintenance plan is, and then make sure your downtime is lowered. And now with advent of like really generative AI and high level of data processing, we can go to the predictive mode, right? And which is where we are moving from Signet to Ignition, where we can do that, right? We can predict what's going to happen, right? Because now we have so much processing power in our hand, and even at the edge on locations, that we can predict all of that used to be done, with big machines, big computer processors in the office.
Well, let me ask you this, Nav, because moving from a legacy system to predictive, there's lots of things that are happening, and I don't just mean the technology piece. And this is why having you on the show is pretty valuable, because there's lots of shows out there that the nerds are on, and they're talking, oh, here's some great pie in the sky things to do. But from your perspective, because I don't see you as the regular, in my mind, a C-suite. I think what you bring to the table when you're in that role is a punch in the way that you're able to articulate what's happening on the boots on the ground. I know you as the person that actually goes to the frac spread. I know you as the person that goes there and will spend time there and not sit in the C-suite and make a head in the cloud proclamation. So having said that, from your perspective, what is another challenge? If you're going from legacy to predictive in terms of operations, do you think beyond technology, you think that there's a culture challenge there? Like, because in our industry, it's sometimes, having been in the field, it's not easy to implement those things. We may talk about them, but you mentioned earlier, you spend, there's a percentage of your time that you spend doing blocking and tackling, which is typical of a culture of people, right? You have to work together. But do you see that as a challenge that's kind of integrated into that goes beyond just technology?
Absolutely, right. When we talk about technology and pushing technology to the next level and to the front line of operations, right? then a lot of mistakes that management make is they don't really clarify what the purpose and the goal is. So, uh, so to me, what technology is, what automation, remote optimization is, right, and going to predictive management, right, of of our daily ops, right, daily decision making is that we have the same competent experts who are doing our work in the field or in the office at every point, and all we are giving them is a better tool to do their job,
Right.
like with higher accuracy, right?
Right.
More percentage of success and faster.
Right.
So so if you take anyone from a smaller, uh, like four stroke engine to kind of like like a big sports car where
Right.
they have a power, right? So it's
Yeah.
the same person, same driver, but driving different cars of different
Yeah.
horsepower. So it just gives them like a much better excitement of work. But most of the time in the past, automation and optimization have been portrayed by industry and everyone else as we don't need this person, we don't need people, like machines will make the decisions for them. But it's exact opposite, right? The
Right.
machines are the ones which are getting this person to make better quality, they're making them better, right?
Right.
So that's how we have to kind of discuss that with everyone when we are trying to implement we're giving you a better horsepower engine so you can do your work better, or you can drive faster, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I think the analogy I give, the way I always interpret that, especially from my perspective on the technology side, is that even the best athletes in the world that perform at the top level still need a coach. They're not the technology is not replacing the coach. What's happening is that AI and technologies that have come in are augmenting and coaching you to go from 99% to the 99.99 that you're trying to achieve in your respective expertise, whether that's in production, whether that's in completions, or if you're flowing back into production, into the midstream and the downstream part of the supply chain. I mean, that value chain, right? So that's how I interpret what you're saying is, hey, we're not trying to just wholesale replace a body. I don't think that's what this is. This is more about augmenting what you're doing and taking it to the next level,
Excellent.
right, to perform. Um,
yeah
yeah, and
It-
so that kind of brings me to what we're talking about. Is your second challenge is scaling remote optimization and automation. I think in all parts of the value chain, whether you're at CNX or in your past experience, I mean, there's got to be some challenges there.
yeah, definitely. Like first challenge is scaling, right? uh, because when you're scaling and at the same time trying to move from a legacy you know system to the most like a new generation
Right.
system, like ignition. So there's a lot of technology that you have to pay for. So that's first challenge, that you have to have a budget. And then the second part is implementation of it, moving from a legacy. So you just cannot do it everything in one day.
Right.
So it has to be a process, or a phased approach on how we change it. So in the median, during the change, like there's a period where everyone's using both the systems, the legacy system, and so there's inherent cognitive load on everyone's mind, right?
Right.
It's making them, like, the change is tougher because they have to deal with both. Not only they have to, like, understand where the old ones are, but they have to learn the new system, right?
Right.
And like expand it, right? So
Right.
there's a challenge. So that has to be approached like the way we are approaching here at CNX,
Right.
with OpSite's team.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, Nav, that no change is ever painless. It doesn't matter if you look in the natural world. If you're shedding skin, if you're shedding something, I don't do it. Obviously, you can tell I'm not in the gym working out every day, but it requires a level of resistance. If you're going to be a better athlete, it requires some, no one likes to hear it anymore, the pain and gain scenario, but there is a, in the digital world, there's the digital transformation, and that's such a cliche word when the reality is that in between there, you're taking those pain points and there's things you're going to do that are either challenging or more painful, but you're going to, in return, what you're getting is, like you said, there's a technical debt that is getting paid or that you have to come against in order to get to what you're talking about, right? So you have to get away like that. That's a big part of it. And I think everyone likes to make that sound nicer than it really is, but it is a part of the process. Is you may have to not only see your pain points, but like you said, there's a transition period where it is top of mind and there's challenges there. And it sounds almost painful.
So guys, there's a transition period happening right now. You see on screen where this is a zoom in of our live control room where Jordan back here is operating on basically two systems. So these are, legacy Signet systems. It's requiring 6 more monitors at this desk for a temporary basis where, his footprint will look like this when we get done with the full integration, like a 3-screen, 34-inch wide. But right now he's set up with, kind of the temporary system for the next 2 months so we can validate, check out, extension before we completely retire Signet, right?
Leave that there, Jeff, because this is a good point for anybody that's tuning into the podcast. Right here is what I call under the hood digital transformation. It is not a report that you get from Deloitte, okay? Digital transformation is not a $50,000 20-page report that you get. It's that, right? Show it again. That is digital transformation. It is saying we're going to take the pain of a paywall system with a technical debt inside of a real producer, and we're going to take a vision, we're going to turn it into reality, and we're going to implement it, leveraging this control room, and we're going to take that to the next level. But there's going to be a little bit of pain in there, and you can't boil it down to a 20-page report, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you were saying on change, right? Change can be fun, exciting, right? And bring a lot of energy in the team, right? Or it can bring a lot of pain.
Right.
It's just how we change it, because to me, change is psychological.
Right.
Right. And to success is also 80% psychology and only 20% rest of it. So it's how we portray it. To me, the change that we are having right now, it has a few bumps in the road during the transition phase,
Right.
but it's exciting. It takes us to the next level. It takes us to the predictive level where we can completely be on the frontier of the technology curve on how how we manage our operations, how we can predict failures ahead of time, have kind of change the way the business and operations is done in the field. But for that, the management of the change is really important, right?
Yes.
And as managing or manager of the change, the first few things that everyone in the team has to do is not go to a consulting firm and get a 50-page PowerPoint presentation, but to kind of sit down with the team or implementers of technology and clearly line out what the vision is.
Yeah.
The vision for CNX with this change is move to the frontier of operational technology and operations management, right? Where we can process the data so fast that we have physics, chemistry, and mechanical all integrated and can come to the decisions faster than anyone else in the industry. So that is amazing. That will drop our cash cost for operations by a factor of maybe 20% or 30%, right?
Right.
Like initially, right? And then
Yes.
later as we develop it, it'll drop it down. So to me, that should be one of the most exciting things for the team and for the management, because that's our vision and goal to kind of get there. And the second part of is what our mission is. Mission is to get to predictive
Right.
predictive maintenance. So which means our downtime, our our calls at 2 a.m. in the morning where this is down versus that will be minimized. I'm not going to like say that it's going to be eliminated. It never is, right? Because we as humans can never figure everything out. But it will be dropped drastically, right?
Yeah.
So there'll be only maybe 20% of those calls, as we solve those later on.
Yes.